So the question regarding the creative test, so the reason why you're having a separate creative testing campaign is because you're segmenting out the audience per se, so it doesn't overlap with the already performing one. Since we now know that meta's changed, you can now carry over the creative from the creative test into the main campaign, and the audience will follow it because it's all lanes based. Do you
Exactly.
know like when this change happened? Because I know a lot of advertisers are freaking out about this right now.
November, December-ish. What ended up
Okay.
happening was Meta basically just said, "Hey, we're going to be using Advantage Plus audiences for everybody, and for Advantage Plus audiences to actually have some sort of semblance of direction, they no longer will duplicate audiences within the ad sets of the campaign." Now, if you have one ad set per campaign, i.e., that is a campaign now. But if you had a
So manual
campaign,
and Advantage Plus, this both
everything,
works. Got it. Okay.
everything now from now on. And so that's what's interesting is we have just by chance ran everything in one ad set. One ad set here, one ad
Yeah,
set there, one ad set here. I
because
mean,
of
everything's one
CBO.
ad set. So now these are all, yeah, exactly because of CBO. But now everything here, these are all these ad sets are now campaigns. So that means my creative testing ad set is going to be a different group of people than my main campaign's ad set, or my creative testing is going to be different than my main campaign.
Yeah.
So very simplistic. So now because we can consolidate and then scale, the way that we look at things are compartmentalized by stages comparative to the same stage that you are reviewing that data set in. And then you're doing a bolt on of creative testing also for that stage. So where we're ultimately going to be getting to, this is a notepad. I don't even know what's in here. Oh, look at all of these keywords. Groin in the back, hitting pain. Yeah. Anywho, it's physical therapy keywords. Anyway, so what we're looking at here is you have creative testing, and then you have main campaign. Those are the two kind of like, two main topics.
And
However,
this is all within L1 essentially.
well,
It
we
could be.
forget the L's for a moment. They'll
Okay.
help here. So if we did a traffic campaign, I can't type campaign, then we're going to have a conversion campaign. And then you could have, if you wanted to, it gets a little bit hairy, remarketing campaign. You can have a win back campaign. You can have a new product launch campaign. You can have a cross sell campaign. You can have an upsell campaign. Each one of these can have these two campaigns within them. So that's kind of what's interesting about this is if we have our traffic campaign, like all we're seeing right now on the screen right here is this. We have a conversion campaign where we have a creative testing and a main one. That's these two here. Just forget the L's.
Okay.
So this is a creative testing and a main campaign of our conversions.
So question on that. Okay, so yeah, two separate campaigns. Got it. So it's still on CBO.
Still CBO, singular ad sets, because
Makes
Meta
sense.
gets to choose now where these people, it used to be if I target them, put them here. You have to then remove the thing in the brain if I can target them. That no longer
Yeah.
works very well. It still does. I'm not saying it. I'm not saying targeting is gone. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is targeting is no longer dependent upon forever as under our control. We
Yeah.
have to assume if we're not going to confirm by third-party metrics or top line, even UTMs for new customers. That kind of seems like it's a little bit wonky. That's why CAPI imports are now bringing everything back into realistic data. And then Meta's changes of audience overlap now being deduped, and the fact that the exclusions are kind of being ignored from many, many case studies I've shared, you've shared, big companies reaching out, being like, can you help? We're seeing the same thing. It's a thing. Like, it's here to stay. We can't ostrich our way out of it. But what this means now is that the functionality has to be a little bit different. We have to revise our decision-making process to the new way that Meta is trying to optimize our campaigns for us. That's kind of the way that I always look at it. But the main metrics I would always use for any stage ever are these metrics, where'd they go? So we got those, and then let's do this. These are how I always judge things, and actually how I always can see why things did or did not move the way that we want them to. I can't do a comparison tool, so let me do that next. But if I look at cost per result, CPM, CPC, CTR, and then we need to also have frequency, and then we need to have reach. Yeah.
So
Reach.
crazy how it's just all lanes though. That's like audience expansion, essentially optimized targeting if you're a Google Ads person, and then just all lanes based, which is like crazy because yeah, like the fact that you can carry over an audience based on creative, it's if you just pause it and bring the creative over is wild.
Yeah. And so that's what was interesting is I was like, well, what if it just dedupes between the ad sets, but are different, but you can have overlap between each one of the campaigns? And they said no, because no, if it's the same conversion, or sorry, what they call it, the event it's optimizing for.
Okay.
So that's actually an important distinction. You can you can duplicate in the view content and the conversion campaign. You can be found in both. I'm assuming that will happen, and I'm hoping that will happen so that my creative testing can also apply down the funnel. If it works well to view content, and it works well to comparative to other view contents, and it works well inside of the conversion campaign and should be comparative against all of the other ads in that conversion campaign, it can be used kind of cross-pollination. A good ad is a good ad whether you want to know more about it or you want to buy it. It's the same thing.
So question on that. So let's say that you have like on the creative test, you have one ad, or not even, let's just say you have two campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both the same event. Let's just say they're optimizing towards purchasers.
Mm-hmm.
You have both, let's say you have the same creative in both. Can you carry over one of the creative? How would that work then in terms of if you have the same creative in two separate campaigns and they're going after two different audiences but the same conversion action? How would you carry over one to the other?
The one has 1/10 the spend. So
Okay.
if there's 100 people in that audience, I'm trying to buy 90 over here and 10 over here. I'm
Okay,
testing
so
the
the
10.
audience is the same, but it's scooping up the targeting differently. Okay, got
The
it.
spend levels are drastically different.
Got it. Okay,
And
that's what
so
that confirmed a lot for
12
me right
grand
there.
and 1,200. Exactly. Like I could spend 12 grand and it would be essentially the same as doubling that with different creative.
Got it.
But I have to go
This
and scale
is
that now 10 times.
this is gold, man. No one does. No, I feel like no one talks about this kind of stuff, like
It's because the
on
shit's
like a
hard.
deeper level. Yeah, no, this is
Right.
crazy.
Yep. So what we're looking at here
Gosh.
from this part here, which is kind of cool because we see that there is some levels of economies of scale reduced, which also means that we have to assume that the one spending less is going to arbitrarily look higher. So we say, okay, remember, it's always the same old thing. Yeah, you're getting 15% click-through rate in here, but what if you 10x that spend? I'm sure it's going to go down. We know that shit. Like, yes, like we already assume. However, you have to still have some semblance of creative, unless you want to throw 12K at everything. Probably a bad idea. So the latter is simply more effective, even though it's not perfect. It's much better. So we're looking at the frequency. Is it getting a higher frequency than this one? Okay. So what this basically now tells you is that yes, this campaign spent 1,200, not 12 grand, but they actually saw those more. So fuck you. That's kind of what we say. You spend 10 times as more. Yeah, but they saw more of mine. So there's always that kind of double-sided coin. Okay, cool. So now what? And I try to make this fun to keep people awake. So I'm going to swear for fun. But the frequency shows, yes, these people saw more of the creative test in this one. When they saw it more, the CPM was higher. Okay. The CPC was lower. That must have meant that the click-through rate was way better. Aha. Now, is a reach and frequency about the same? Obviously, because we have frequency being about the same. Yes, the ratios between those are good. So if we said, okay, take a subfraction of that and a subfraction of that, and then show them the same ads the same amount of time, what's the difference? I don't really care about CPM too much because CPM is also dictated by specific keywords inside of that ad copy that can trigger higher or lower bidded audiences. If I said free Ferrari versus, have you tried the next wave of automobiles? Like one's going to have a higher CPM. That's actually been proven recently. So this
What would be an example of, like, have you found, like, is it the free one that's more expensive?
No, it actually is based almost like a keyword, like high intent keyword. So if you had like we had I forget who it was, what company it was, but we worked with them this last month doing creative testing, and it was 3 campaigns, 3 of the same audiences, but just 3 of the same images, videos, and everything, but 3 different ad copies. So everything was the same, ran consecutively, not concurrently, so there wouldn't be any deduping and overlap. And there was differences between $12 CPMs and $100 CPMs based on just purely changes in the text copy. It was actually for an attorney, and one was something that's saying like the best attorney in Houston. You don't pay unless you win. Blah 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 blah. The other one was like, do you need legal representation in healthcare? It was like completely different CPMs. So obviously we're kind of pioneering that a bit. So I'll have more information as that comes, if we can identify that more often. But CPM can be dictated by creative, but from a text. So let's just assume maybe, maybe not. This is really what I'm looking for here. Can I get more people to engage? And are they coming in cheaper than these? This could say a billion. I don't care. This is really the actual thing that's happening here.
I wonder if we can
So
like create like some kind of calculation that puts all these together that says good or bad, and it's like a point system. Like it seems like it's all just like you could get ratios from all of this, and then just look at the volume and be like, okay, this with this ratio good, this with this ratio bad. Okay,
exactly.
like
And so that's kind of like there is a bit of a um how do I describe this? There is
nuance.
that kind of economies of scale too that you'd have to poise to that, because if you look at the ratio, it'll be like this is X% better, X% better, X% better. But then if they 10x the spend, it might even out or be slightly better. It could be slightly
Yeah,
worse. So there always is that. What we're trying to do is basically not creative. We don't. If this looks really, really bad in our creative testing, if it's worse than what's happening, we're not going to add it.
yeah,
So
no, it
it's
makes
like,
sense.
yes, you're spending 1/10, but you also need to beat it. And so what's nice about that is if this is something that we can run feeder strategy with feeder creative testing, and then conversion strategy with conversion testing on creative, those two combined, now we have the best of both worlds. We have feeder with a never ending supply of people, and then we have a new engaged audience that has a high frequency that they're coming already on board, almost with the same frequency that we're trying to convert them on.